Hi everybody, very welcome to yet another live stream. It's Sunday once again. I can't believe how quickly the weeks are going by, but I hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic as always. I hope we'll have a great live stream as always. And as you know by now, if you send in your messages via the Mentour Aviation app, which I hope all of you guys have by now, or the super chat, I will be prioritizing those, especially the super chat where you're actually contributing to the channel. Otherwise, I will be talking to all of you. And a little caveat here, guys. I am running out of my mobile internet. It's true. I've been uploading way too much stuff lately. So if the live stream cuts short today, I am apologizing. I'm gonna have to go and get some more internet, basically. But that's where we are. So let's see who's here. We've got Cleveland Kevin. We've got Valeria Mayor Dorm. Good to see you all here, guys. Fire away your questions, because you know by now how this works. I will be talking about whatever you guys want me to talk about, really. I'm not sure how long I'll be able to go tonight, even if the internet does hold up, because I am flying a very long day tomorrow. I'm doing 4 sectors, and 2 of my destinations are in the UK. And if you're in the UK, you know what kind of weather is about to come tomorrow. It looks a little bit sporty, to say the least. So I'm looking at max crosswind landings and stuff tomorrow, and I'm going to be training, which means that that I'm going to have to go and get myself a good night's sleep before I start tomorrow's day. But anyway, I'll be here and I will be answering your questions as long as I can. Edward Cameron first in the super chat. Hey Edward, good to see you. Thank you very much for contributing to the channel. Edward is almost always here on my live streams and is always contributing, which is fantastic. It's great. It helps me towards any improvements that I can do on the channel, but also it helps me towards potentially upgrading the app. So thank you very much, Edward. So let's see. Hi from Scotland, Eddie. Good to see you. I guess you guys are getting a little bit of the wind tomorrow as well. As far as I can see, the worst part of this hurricane is going to hit Ireland. But I'm flying towards the west coast of the UK tomorrow, to Bristol actually, and that looks fairly sporty as well. Right, from Somalia as well, and from California. There's people from all over the world. Fantastic. So let's see, guys. What would you like me to speak about today? I know that I haven't sent out the flap video yet. I am still working on it because I'm missing some key filming material that I need to do, and I need to do the speaks. So that's why that's hanging up. And also, there will be a Halloween special coming out this year as well. I am working on that one as well. So there is quite a lot of new material coming up, and there's more stuff that I have that I'm planning that I won't tell you about, but I think you're going to really like. Right, so we said we have people from the Basque country as well. So do you earn enough to get a good internet connection? That's a good question. The fact is that I have been trying my absolute best to try to get a good, solid internet connection here. But I live out on the countryside in Spain, and the best they can offer here is ADSL or mobile internet. So I bought myself a mobile internet modem that has 25 gigabytes on it, and that's what I'm using for my live streams. Because the ADSL is so bad that I wouldn't even be able to do this live stream using the normal connection. And I have been praying on my bare knees for them to get fiber up here, but they just refuse. It won't happen. So unless I move, it doesn't matter how much money I earn, I'm going to be stuck with my ADSL modem. Mentor, do pilots control the cabin lighting, or do they only control the cockpit lighting? Well, we don't control the cabin lighting. The cabin lighting is controlled by the cabin crew. And if you've seen my video about the new interior, the new sky interior of the Boeing, you will know that they have a control panel up in the forward galley that controls the lighting there. We do control the emergency exit lighting, which we can turn on if we want to. But that's pretty much it. Obviously, all external lighting and all the lighting in the cockpit, but nothing more in the cabin. Right. So from Valerio is on the super chat. Hello. Do the PPL exam results matter for airlines? No, not really. To be perfectly honest, they will be looking at your ATPL exams though. So when it's time for you to do your ATPLs, you know, the 14 exams you do in order to get your frozen ATPL, then you have to pay quite close attention. Because most airlines are actually looking at your results from those if you haven't got any previous experience and they're taking you in as a cadet, they don't have much to work on. So they're going to be looking at your ATPL exams, and they will also be looking at that you haven't done any retests. So some airlines will do this, not all airlines. So those of you who have got failed ATPL exams behind you, don't worry. There's nothing you can do about it right now anyway. You can just go forward. But I know that some airlines will be looking at it. If they have a huge amount of people applying to it, they will be looking at first-time passes and what kind of score you've had. But when it comes to your PPL exams, no one will really care that much, because it's so early on in your flying career that it doesn't. Having said that, obviously you should be preparing yourself good enough so that you can answer those questions correctly, and so that you don't fail it, because that would be just, sad. Right, let's see if we get any questions on the Mentour Aviation app here. Do you have a PPL as well? Well, yes and no, all right? I got my PPL as part of my integrated course I did, but at the moment I have let go of my single engine rating, because basically I haven't used it, right? And you need to keep that up to date, and especially since I moved down to Spain, I haven't really had any chance or any real reason to go flying single engine down here, because we do so much flying anyway. But I'm thinking now that my boys are getting a little bit older that I might be taking it up again, and in that case I will be taking it up, but it will be me flying single engine under my ATPL license, obviously. Right, Mentor, recently an Air Canada 787 was flying from Toronto to Mumbai, India, was diverted to nearby airport landing gear and faced fuel shortage after flying for 17 hours after they denied ATC denied Mayday calls. What are the rules for Mayday calls? Yeah, I read about that actually. When an aircraft calls Mayday, all right, that means that the aircraft is in, or there is a risk to life of people on board the aircraft. Okay, that's basically what a Mayday call is. It's not a distress. It's a distress call. It's not an urgency call. All right. So you have pan, which is an urgency call. It means that you need urgent attention, right? But then you have Mayday, which is a distress call, which means that there is risk for damage and life on board. So that means that ATC cannot deny access to airport. They should give you absolute priority to get you down wherever you can, providing that airport is actually open and can take traffic, so it's not blocked for whatever reason. In this case, there was not enough room for people to park, but that doesn't matter. As long as the airport is safe to land on, they should have let the aircraft down. So there was definitely mistakes made from ATC in this case, Indian ATC. And I'm sure that they're going to get to hear that when the investigation of this is true. Right, so Q Fesk in the super chat, can you please talk or make a video about simulators? All right, so if you're talking about desktop simulators like PDMG and Flight Sim and so on, I'm not really the one who should be making a video about that, to be perfectly honest, because I don't use them myself. There are plenty of people out there who are really, really good with these kind of simulators. They should be the ones talking to them. I wouldn't have anything against, comparing, sitting down with a few people who knows flight simulators well and tell them whether or not they look the part, whether or not they're realistic enough on the 737, obviously. That I could do, but it wouldn't be any good for me to sit down and talk to you guys about flight simulators that I'm not using normally, if you see what I mean. Prutvin Netevi on the super chat, thank you very much for contributing. If you had a question, then it didn't appear here on the super chat, so just send it to me on Facebook and I will try to answer it for you. More questions here from Prentice 181. Mentor, what is the minimum age you can start flight training at? I believe that you can actually start in some cases as early as 14 and 15, but you can't lift your CPL, I think even your PPL, until you're 18. So there's no real point in starting really early and just like flying. I would suggest that you concentrate on getting all your schooling done properly at an early age. Maybe do some glider flying, because gliders you can actually get your certificate for when you're 15. Now, I'm talking about Europe here. So, you know, there might be some local differences to this if you look all over the globe, but there's no real point of getting any CPLs done before you're 18 because no airline is going to hire you. Some airlines actually have 20 or 21 as the lowest age. So don't worry, guys. When you're young, I know that the only thing that you want to do is get flying as quickly as possible, but you have time. So it's better to use that time to get your studies done correctly and have good grades and, you know, find a good school to make sure that you've done the research correctly and then go for it when you have both the funds and the research done. All right, and I know that's not what you want to hear, but that's the fact. Cool. Mentor, how often do pilots squawk 7600, 7700? Well, only when they have either a loss of comms or an emergency. So I have not squawked 7700, which is the emergency code, ever, fortunately. Touch wood. But, you know, whenever we find ourselves in an emergency, we want ATC to be, you know, focusing their full attention on us, then we would use those codes. 7600, very rare. I mean, we do have 2 working boxes. Very rare to get complete radio failure. Okay, what tends to happen though, and what's becoming more and more of a problem, is that people are not listening out on their active frequency. They might be talking about something else. They might have turned their volume down, and they lose radio contact with the station that they're supposed to talk to, and they don't get transferred over to the next sector. And obviously, if you go out of radio contact, you won't hear anything. It will just become quiet. And then they're not listening to 1215. We should always have 1215, which is the emergency frequency, open on standby on our box 2, so that anyone can reach us. Because if we would go out of radio contact with our current ATC sector, then they would try to contact us on the 121.5, and they will send that on to the closest sectors as well, saying that, can you please call these guys and see if they're on 1215. That's what they will do first. If they can't get us on 115, then they will launch the fighter jets. You know, that's when the fighter jets will come up and kind of wave at you, and you can be sure that the people who sees that are going to quickly turn on 1215 and see what's going on, but it's too late already, and it's going to be a significant fine sent out to the airline. So this is a problem we have. It's called PLOC, prolonged loss of communication. I did a video on that as well. Check that out. And yeah, it's a problem, but we have SOPs in force to try to deal with it. Right, more questions. How do non-captains get training on captains-only landing airports when only captains are allowed to land at them? Good question, Christian. So there are some airports which have the captain's landing only restriction, and some of them are really tricky and require simulator training. So in some specific airports, then we might do a sim session, or if it's a really like narrow runway, for example, Memmingen in Germany is a captain's landing only and only takeoff because it's only 30 meters wide. Then we've done generic narrow runway training. Okay, so all captains have gone through narrow runway practice in the simulator. Once they have that, then they're okay to operate to that. And then there are some places which doesn't have any specific training for it, but it's just deemed to be captains only because they have higher experience. And in that case, you just have to have gone through your captain's training, you know, have been deemed to be good enough to be a captain. And when you are, then you are good enough to be pilot flying into those airports. So some have training, some don't have training, but that's the way it works. Okay, and then you have also, there might be some wind restrictions. Tomorrow, I think, for example, we're going to be very, very close to max crosswind, and what has to happen then is that the captain, me, gets to do the landing. Cool. There's loads of questions coming up on the super chat here, guys. I'm going to take it one by one. Captain 777. Huge gratitude for what you're doing for the community. What are the chances for an aeronautical engineer to become a pilot? Is it a high probability, and do airlines help out in funding since you work for them? In some cases they do. There are airlines that have like internal programs where you can go from one role within the company to another, right? It's not all of the companies who does this, but some companies do. So you should check with the airline that you're working for and see if they have any grants or any help. Otherwise, your experience as a as an aeronautical engineer, obviously it's going to help you when it comes to your technical knowledge. It will probably be a feather in the hat when you're applying for airlines as well. It might not be something that makes you be on top of the pile, but I would say that it's definitely not a bad thing. And of course, you can go from being an engineer to a pilot. I actually have a few of my colleagues that went that way. Started off as engineers, and then they went in to the cockpit, and are now captains, and then they can very quickly become technical pilots, which is quite cool. You might be doing the test flights and stuff like that because you have that extra technical knowledge. So it's a good way to go. Cool, and thank you, by the way, for your nice words. But Blue Bear is asking, how can I pay my 120k flight course with a loan? Yeah, beats me. I mean, there's no easy way of doing this, guys. If you're going to do one of those hugely expensive UK courses that are costing 120 plus whatever it costs to do a type rating later on, you will probably need to borrow some money. And some people have their parents mortgage their houses to do it. Other people maybe have family fortunes that is coming from, or they can scrape up the money some other way. But the fact is that you're going to have to amass that money some way. And there used to be a loan. I know BBVA, it's a Spanish bank who used to give bank loans specifically for taking your pilot's training, but I think they've stopped that. It might be new banks coming up. But I'm always saying that, listen, you don't have to pay £120,000. That is the absolute most expensive, kind of top of the line, top notch. It's like saying, I need to have a Ferrari. You need a car, so I need to have a Ferrari. Well, you can get quality training for half of that money. I know my old flight school, Scandinavian Aviation Academy, that I've mentioned a couple of times. They have a very, very good course, probably equally good as any of the UK big schools, but I think theirs is about 75 or 80,000 euro, which is still a lot of money, but it's way less than 120. And then you can do your modular training, which you can do significantly cheaper. Now that's going to be more of a job for you. You're going to have to take better, more responsibility for your own training. Okay, you might have to do more work at home without study help and stuff like that. Might take longer time, but then I would say that you can do good quality training for around 50 to 55,000 euros if you want to, which is still a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but it's less than half of the money that you're talking about. So think about it, because at the moment there are a lot of pilot jobs out there. I know that the big schools are saying that you go through them, you will be guaranteed a job, but at the moment it's a fairly good chance that if you have played your cards right and you're a good pilot, that you will get a job anyway, or at least a chance to go for an interview. So think about that. The difference between 120 and 55,000 is quite a lot. Right, so Prithvi is asking again on the super chat, how do you prevent tail strikes during landing? You have to the main thing that you have to make sure is that you have a stabilized approach. That means that you are on the approach path, you have the correct thrust setting, you have the correct descent rate, and all of the parameters are looking good. If that's the case and you're coming in with the correct speed, then a tail strike on landing is highly improbable. It's very, very rare with tail strikes on landing. We've had a tail strike on landing once in my company's history, and that happened after a bounce. Right, the aircraft came in, landed a bit hard, bounced up, got spoiler deflection. They closed the thrust level. Basically, they had a little bit of thrust on. They bounced up. They closed the thrust levels, and when they did, then because it was less than 10 feet above ground, the spoilers came up, because that's a feature they have. When the spoilers came up, the drag increased and they actually scraped the tail. So it's a very, very specific case, okay? And the tail strikes on landing tends to damage the aircraft worse. They're not necessarily dangerous, but they damage the aircraft quite badly. So we try to avoid tail strikes on landing at any cost, and that's mainly by keeping the approach stabilized. And if you feel at any point the approach is not stabilized, well, then we go around. Okay, it's really important that you go around if you don't feel happy all the time, right? Cool. So more questions. Assalamualaikum, Jonathan Greco. Can you explain the differences between your two apps? Does Mentour 360, which is a paid app, include all of the videos for sale in the Mentour Aviation app? No. Right, I'm going to explain this once and for all. The Mentour 360 app was the first application that I did. That is a pure video app, okay? It has those 5 videos, I believe, that's in there. Those are the only things that exist inside the Mentour 360 app, okay? The Mentour Aviation app is my second app, okay? That's the free app that everyone can download. That includes all of the videos that are in the Mentour 360 app for sale, and also some more stuff like the setup, for example, and the engine failure stuff, and also all of the videos that I am planning to make as soon as I get my hands on a simulator again will be coming into the Mentour Aviation app. So Mentour 360 is there. I am still leaving it out on the App Store because there's still a market for people who just want to buy a video player. It's everything in once, so you don't have to download videos as you go. But the Mentour Aviation app is where everything is happening. That's where I have my social stuff. That's where I have all of the discussions going on. That's where I send out push notifications about things that's going on, and I'm sending out quite a lot of news now because I have a source that's sending me news from the aviation world, and when there's something interesting happening, well, then I push that out, saying that, for example, there's been a crash in Russia, or there is this happening in this airline, or they are going bankrupt, or whatever. So the Mentour Aviation app is the future. That's what I'm working on. Okay, but I still have both of them. So I hope that makes sense to you. And thank you very much, by the way. So more questions in the super chat. Great to see, guys. Thank you very much for contributing and helping out in the channel. Daniel Demitz Helene. Hi, Mentor. I have 2 questions today. 1, in your opinion, is the hub spoke or point-to-point model the future of the industry? And 2, was the 787 project flawed considering all the controversy surrounding it? 1, I think the hub is the future of short to medium, because it speaks both to the pilots and the airline. It works well from both, providing that you have enough aircraft to fill hubs. That is the future, at least in Europe. Okay, because it's been proven to be very successful and very, very popular. The 787 project, I don't think is flawed. Actually, I think the 787 project is going to prove to be one of Boeing's most successful projects ever. There will always be what's called like childhood faults, okay, where stuff has happened during the process when they're building the aircraft, and after all of the exhaustive testing that they've done, it's still stuff that comes out maybe after it's been online for 5, 6, 7 months. Like the batteries was a problem that they couldn't foresee. They probably would have done long-term testing, would have seen it, but they didn't. So it's a typical one of those that makes it look like the whole process of making the aircraft wasn't good. Well, it actually was, and then they've sorted it out. So I think that the 787, when we look back at the 787 in many, many years, it's going to be one of the most successful ones because it has the correct amount of seats, it has the correct range, it is very fuel efficient, it's very, very modern. So that one and the Airbus 350, I think, is going to be hugely successful. They are exactly right in time. Okay, I think that the Airbus 380, for example, is going to be looked back at as kind of a flop. And I'm really interested in seeing what's going to happen with the 777 and the 777X, because the 777 has also been a huge success story. And I think that the 777X is going to be even more so, because that kind of fills in where the 787 stops, and the 777 kind of fills in. And then unfortunately, I think that the 747 will ultimately disappear. No matter how much I love it, I think it's on the way out. So we'll see. I hope that answers your question. Cool. So Major Doom, what's the SOP when pilot fart and you can't breathe? The SOP is to tell your colleague that you're very, very sorry and that it's happened. And if you can't breathe, whenever you have any problems breathing, you have an oxygen mask that you can use. However, using the oxygen mask for a fart would be very hard to explain to the engineers when you have to call them to restow and replenish the crew oxygen. So in most cases, what happens is you just say, sorry, my fault, and the other one says, ugh. And then you kind of put your gasper outlets on full to get some fresh air, and that's it. That's what tends to happen. So, Skjalg from Norway, don't know what to ask. Well, thank you anyway for being here and for contributing. It's great to see you here, and it's fantastic to get all the help I can get with the channel. So I'll take some questions then from the Mentor app, because now I'm running out of super chat questions here. Mentor, how easy is it to get an airline job in Sweden? I've heard that it's impossible to be a captain in Sweden. Is that true? No, that's not true. There are several airlines in Sweden at the moment. There are smaller airlines. Of which I don't really know the names of all of them yet, but you have Braathens Malmö Aviation, which is a really cool airline to work for. You have Scandinavian Airlines, you have Norwegian Air Shuttle. Now, Scandinavian Airline System is an old type flight carrier. You get in there, even with experience, you're going to have to start from the bottom, and then you work your way up, and it might take you a long time to get to the command. It might take you 15 years or something like that, because it's strictly seniority driven and they're not expanding. And when an airline is not expanding, well, then they will only fill captain positions when there are captain's positions, so when people are retiring, basically. So that's happening. That probably takes time. If you go into Norwegian Air Shuttle, it's similar to Ryanair, because they are expanding heavily, and when they do, it means that there's constantly new positions opening up, both in the short haul and the long haul fleet. So in there, it's much likelier to get a captain's position. So it's absolutely not impossible to get a captain's position, but it will take some time, as in pretty much anywhere, you know. Right, more questions on the super chat then. Well, Mentor, what country do you think offers the best commercial pilot training? I don't think that there is a country that offers the best pilot training. I think that there are specific schools that do, all right? And there have been really good training in the UK. Like, they have had very good training on there. I know in the US have a long history of having really good flight training, a very good environment for flight training as well. So I think that there's a huge amount of good training schools in the US, in the UK, and in Europe as a mainland, it's getting better and better. Sweden have very good flight schools. The ones that I've been in contact with, Scandinavian Aviation Academy, we've got Diamond Flight Academy, you've got Svensk Pilotutbildning, SPU, down in Gothenburg, which they all have quite good reputation. There's quite a few Polish schools that are popping up. Bartolini is one of them, which I've from what I've heard from people I've spoken to, also good flight training, and quite a lot cheaper than others. So it's really worth checking around. You know, look outside of the country that you're living in, because that might save you a lot of money, a lot. Okay, so never underestimate that. Cool, let's take some questions from the actual chat as well, so that don't give up completely. How do I become a good pilot? Well, if you have the will to become a good pilot, okay, you know that it's going to be down to you to study hard, make sure that you know your aircraft, and also be very aware of the importance of CRM, so crew resource management. You cannot be a good pilot by only flying the aircraft well and knowing the systems if you cannot work together in a group, right? So you have to be able to work together with people. You have to be able to get the best out of your co-pilot or your captain or your cabin crew or your ground crew or wherever it might be. So you need to be able to communicate in a good way. You need to know your stuff. You need to be a good listener, a good communicator. And all of this is something that you amass over time. Right? I constantly work. I've been working for 15 years, and I constantly try to get better. And when I go into the simulator and I see people doing a really good job, I get impressed, and I try to learn from them, because in this business you have to realize that you never ever stop learning. Right? The day that you come out of the cockpit saying that, yeah, that's it, now I know enough, then it's time to quit. So that's how you become a good pilot, by knowing that you always have to work on becoming better, and knowing that you can learn from others and communicate well with others. Mentor, what was the first plane you flew? The first plane I ever flew was a smaller planes, was a Piper PA-28, and then the first ones that actually with a flight instructor was a Cessna 172, and then during my training I flew a Cessna 172, a Cessna 152, a Cessna 182, a Cessna 340, and yeah. That's about it, and then I went straight up to watch the 737-800. And it's a good question actually, because I'm getting questions from people who want me to pay for their flight training, and the fact is that I, as you might imagine, if I would start to even contribute money towards flight training, then I would have to do the same for everyone who asks it, and that would be basically thousands, tens of thousands of people. So I do my best here to try to come with as much constructive information as possible and to help you out if you have actual questions or needs. That's what I can do. Money, you're gonna have to go to a bank or relatives to get. Cool, more questions. So there's loads and loads of questions coming in, guys. So use the super chat if you have something really important that you want to ask. When do you think people should be training for aviation? Well, you need to have a passion for it. You need to want to become a pilot. You need to understand what the aviation world is about. So this forms part of you being prepared and you know, checking out what the business is like. When it comes to age, I think a good, you know, mid-20s is probably good. Somewhere around there. Early to mid-20s is good to start, because then you have the flexibility of being young and maybe not married, not having kids. So you'll be able to get a job and maybe move around where you're going to be needed. So that when you have a little bit of experience, that's when you want to start, you know, getting a family, getting kids, settle down. And you can do that. All right. So that's why it's early. It's good to start early. That doesn't mean that you can't start later, because you just need to understand that it might require some flexibility from your half, okay? So, you know, sky's the limit, as I said. You can start basically whenever. Right, more questions then. What about 19? Yeah, 19 is a good age, but, you know, to start is great because it's going to take you 2 years. You're going to be 21, which is good. I got my first airline job when I was 20. Alright, so can you explain LNAV and VNAV? Well, very short, LNAV is lateral navigation, VNAV is vertical navigation. Lateral navigation means that it gives you a track to fly between points, either nav aids or RNAV points, and the aircraft in autopilot following LNAV is going to fly the route that you have programmed in your FMC. Okay, VNAV is computing a vertical profile that takes into consideration, for example, altitude restraints during your departure and your arrival. It starts calculating when you should start your descent in order to get down without too much energy towards your airport. Now, how those actually work and what happens when you press the button is something that I can do a video about when I get my hands on a simulator, because me sitting here explaining it is not really going to be that fun to watch. Do you think in the future there would be auto-flying, no pilot need? Yeah, I've done a video on this, all right, and I've talked about it in my last live stream as well. I think that it will happen. I don't think it will happen soon, all right? Check out the video. It's about 12 minutes long or something, and it will give you all the details about what I think, not what's the fact. This is always what I think, all right? Cool. More questions then. Let's see. Nothing coming up on the super chat, so I will go on to the Mentour Aviation chat. This, by the way, is how it looks when people are sending me questions through the Mentour Aviation app, and this is how it will look for you if you get the app as well and someone wants to talk to you. Maybe you have a question about your flight training, about what school to go to, or just, you know, what's the best place to go spotting. Well, get the app, start talking. Mentour Pilot, when did you start training? If it was at 14 years old, did you drop the school? No, I got my first lesson when I was 14. I didn't start training then. I just got hooked then. That was when I understood that that's what I wanted to do. Well, then I focused all my energy on my school, because I knew in order to get into the government-sponsored program in Sweden, I needed to have almost perfect grades. So that's what I did. I just put my full focus on the books, and I managed to get a perfect score on my first year of the Swedish gymnasium, which is upper secondary school, which brought me into getting an interview to the government-sponsored program, which I managed after some difficulty to get through. So here I am, basically. But that's what you need to do as well. If you find this early, if you're young and you really want to become a pilot, that's what you need to do. Focus on your school, get that done, so that you have a reasonable, you have all the possibilities to get through the ATPL theory without any big problems. And maybe you can even get into a government-sponsored program. They do exist in, I think, in Norway, in Sweden, I think they do in Finland, I think they do in France as well. So there might be. Check out your country. Pan, free slices of pizza. Yeah, that's a pan pizza. It wouldn't be a pan call, but sure. I'm sure there might be some smart pizza place close to an airport that could use that for their marketing skills. Right, cool. More questions in the super chat. There, we're coming up to 36 minutes, guys. So I don't know how long I'm going to be able to continue this. I think I'm running out of internet, to be absolutely honest.